You ever notice how some people lose their minds over their birthday like it's a national holiday, while you're sitting there thinking, it's just Thursday? Your friends are planning parties weeks in advance, posting countdowns, dropping hints about gifts they want. And you forgot it was even coming up until someone reminded you. They think you're being modest. They think you're fishing for attention by pretending not to care. But here's the truth they don't understand. You're not pretending. You genuinely don't feel anything special about the day you happen to be born. And that's not coldness. That's not you being broken. There's actually something fascinating happening in your brain. And once you understand it, you'll stop feeling guilty about not caring. Because the psychology behind this goes so much deeper than anyone realizes. Let's start with something most people never think about. Birthdays force you into a role you never auditioned for. You become the center of attention whether you want it or not. And for some people, that's not exciting. It's suffocating. Psychologists call it spotlight effect anxiety. But it's not just about being shy. It's about something way more fundamental. Control. Think about what actually happens on your birthday. Other people decide how you should feel. They pick the restaurant. They choose the cake. They buy you gifts you didn't ask for and sometimes don't even want. And then they all gather around and sing that horrifying song while you sit there, frozen, wondering if it's too late to just disappear. You're not driving anymore. You're just along for the ride. And if you're someone who needs to feel in control of your own life, that's not a celebration. That's psychological torture. There's research showing that people with a strong internal locus of control, basically people who believe they shape their own destiny instead of letting life happen to them, these people actually report feeling less satisfied with traditional birthday celebrations. They'd rather have a normal Tuesday where they're still making the decisions, where they're still the author of their own day. It's not that they don't like feeling special. They just hate feeling like a passenger in their own story. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Some people avoid their birthday not because they don't want attention, but because they want it too much. Stay with me on this. Imagine you're a kid. It's your birthday. You've been thinking about this day for weeks. You've imagined the decorations, the friends showing up, that one gift you've been dreaming about. You've built this whole movie in your head. And then the day comes. Your mom forgets to order the cake. Half your friends cancel. Your sibling gets more excited about the pizza than about you. Reality crashes into expectation like a truck. Your brain is a prediction machine. It's constantly running simulations of how things should go. And when reality doesn't match what you predicted, you feel something called prediction error. The bigger the gap between what you expected and what you got, the worse it feels. It's not just disappointment. It's betrayal by your own imagination. So here's what happens. Your brain learns. It adapts. It builds a defense mechanism. If you never expect anything from your birthday, you can never be let down. It's emotional insurance. You're not setting yourself up for failure if you never set up the game in the first place. These people aren't being humble when they say they don't care about their birthday. They're being strategic. They learned early, maybe from one bad birthday, maybe from years of mediocre ones, that having no expectations is safer than having high ones. They're protecting themselves. And from the outside, it looks like apathy. But inside, it's survival. Now let's talk about something nobody wants to admit. Birthdays are literally mortality counters. You're celebrating being 1 year closer to death. Congratulations. Here's some cake and a reminder that time is running out. There's an entire psychological theory about this called terror management theory. And yes, that's the actual name. It says that humans are the only animals cursed with the knowledge that we're going to die someday. And we spend a lot of mental energy trying not to think about it. Birthdays make that really hard. Every candle on that cake is a tally mark. Every "you're getting old" joke hits different when you're actually starting to feel it. Some people cope with mortality anxiety by celebrating harder. They throw big parties. They post everywhere. They shout into the void that they're still here, still alive, still relevant. But other people cope through avoidance. Studies on mortality salience, which is just a fancy term for being reminded that you're going to die, show that some personality types respond by minimizing milestone celebrations. They're not consciously thinking about death while ignoring their birthday. But subconsciously, Their brain is quietly uncomfortable. And treating the day like it's normal, like it's nothing, soothes that discomfort. It's a way of saying, this doesn't matter. Time passing doesn't matter. I'm fine. Even when deep down, some part of them is aware of the clock ticking. The irony is beautiful in a dark way. You avoid celebrating your life because celebrating it reminds you that it's finite. But here's something wild that almost nobody talks about. Some of the people who act like they don't care about their birthday are actually the most birthday-obsessed people you'll ever meet. I know that sounds contradictory. Let me explain. There's a psychological phenomenon called idealization paralysis. These are people who have such a perfect, flawless, movie-quality vision of what their birthday should be that real life could never compete. So they shut down the whole thing. It's like having an incredible novel in your head that you never write because you know the actual words on the page could never match the perfection in your imagination. These people often score high in openness and neuroticism on personality tests. They're creative. They feel everything deeply. And they're merciless critics of themselves. The birthday they've imagined has the perfect people, the perfect atmosphere, the perfect emotional moment. Everyone says the right thing. Everyone shows up. Everything feels magical. Anything less than that feels like failure. So what do? Nothing. They protect the fantasy by never testing it in reality. And from the outside, you'd swear they just don't care. But inside, they care so intensely it hurts. They're just terrified of their own impossible standards. There's a term for this. Psychologist Brené Brown calls it foreboding joy. It's the inability to let yourself fully feel happy because you're already bracing for disappointment. You can't enjoy your birthday because you're too busy protecting yourself from it not being perfect. So you pretend it doesn't matter. You ghost the whole event. And everyone thinks you're emotionally distant when really, you're protecting something fragile inside yourself. Now let's zoom out for a second because not everyone grew up being taught that birthdays are the Super Bowl of personal validation. In a lot of cultures around the world, individual birthdays just aren't a big deal. In collectivist societies, the focus is on family, on elders, on the group. Not on making one person feel like royalty for 24 hours because they survived another year. In some countries, people don't even celebrate on their actual birth date. In others, birthdays are acknowledged but not worshipped. If you grew up in that kind of environment, treating your birthday casually is an avoidance. It's not a defense mechanism. It's just normal. Your baseline is different. You never absorbed the cultural programming that says birthdays are supposed to be monumental. So you're not rejecting anything. You're just existing in a different framework. And that's completely valid. Context always matters. Your relationship with your birthday isn't happening in a vacuum. It's shaped by family, culture, the messages you absorbed growing up. But here's the plot twist that might change how you see all of this. Some people who treat their birthday like a normal day are actually the healthiest people in the room. And I mean that seriously. Real self-esteem, the kind that actually lasts, doesn't come from external celebrations. It comes from internal validation. People with secure attachment styles, people who genuinely like themselves, they don't need a special day to feel valued. They feel valued all the time. The birthday is nice. Sure, it's pleasant. But it doesn't define their worth. They already know what they bring to the world. They don't need balloons and cake to remind them. They're not performing indifference to seem cool. They're genuinely content. Meanwhile, and this is hard to hear, people who need their birthday to be a huge spectacular event are sometimes compensating. Not always, but sometimes. They need that one day to feel special because they don't feel special the other 364 days. They need external validation to patch over internal emptiness. So if you're someone who genuinely doesn't care about your birthday, and it's not because you're scared or protecting yourself, but because you just feel secure in who you are, that's not weird. That's maturity. That's emotional health. You don't need a performance. You don't need proof. You already have what everyone else is searching for. So what's the real psychology behind people who treat their birthday like a normal day? It's complicated. It's layered. For some, it's about control. They don't want to be a passive character in someone else's plan. For others, it's protection. They learned that no expectations mean no disappointment. For some, it's existential. Birthdays remind them of mortality and their brain would rather just skip the reminder. For others, it's impossible standards. They care so much that they'd rather care about nothing than risk imperfection. And for some, it's cultural. They were never taught to make a big deal out of it in the first place. And for a rare few, it's actually a sign of deep self-worth. They don't need a day. They have themselves. So the next time someone casually mentions it's their birthday tomorrow and they have no plans, don't assume they're being difficult. Don't assume they're fishing for attention or trying to be quirky. They might just be navigating the complex psychological landscape of expectation, control, mortality, and self-worth in the way that feels safest to them. And honestly, that deserves respect. Whether you're someone who plans your birthday 3 months in advance or someone who genuinely forgets it's happening until someone reminds you, you're not broken. You're just wired differently. And understanding why you feel the way you feel takes the shame out of it. You're allowed to not care. You're allowed to care too much. You're allowed to protect yourself. You're allowed to be secure. All of it is valid. If this made you see birthdays or yourself a little differently, I make videos like this all the time, breaking down human behavior in ways that actually make sense. No jargón. No judgment. Just real psychology explained like a conversation. Consider subscribing because understanding why we do what we do is one of the most powerful tools we have. And I'd love to have you here for the next one. Thanks for watching.